it's almost like every second you perform is another second you could lose them. So every
Oh,
second that isn't great is
yeah.
like, oh my God, we're losing them. We need to kick it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, you had just released the split that you guys had put out.
yeah.
So that's kind of where the conversation ended, was at that split. And you guys have done, I think, another album or two, and then another album's coming out. So a lot has transpired since since we chatted last, which is amazing.
Well, it's good to see you again, and thank you for having me as well.
Of course. Yeah, so the vibe is, it's about you and your journey in music, since we've already chatted, and people can go back and listen to that, so you don't have to repeat yourself. But we'll just kind of catch up or touch on that stuff real quick, and then I want to hear about what's gone on in the past year. So cool. Yeah, born and raised Wales area, correct?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that. It was a small town? Can't remember.
So yeah, so it's actually quite poignant you brought this up, because I've just recently moved from the capital city of Wales back home to my little village in Pontypridd. So
wow.
and I think it's nice, because I think last year, and like we said, since we last spoke, like we've toured an insane amount, and I've seen the world since we spoke. And like I think it's really nice, because I'm from such a small, humble little village that, like, the bigger the world out there feels, the more I enjoy the world back home. It's like from one extreme to the other in a really good way.
Yeah, there's probably something comforting about being back home. I mean, you've seen
Yeah,
the world, and then it's like, but I still kind of dig where I,
for
my
sure. It
roots.
makes you value. It's like almost going to a show and then coming out and just, I don't know, going somewhere peaceful rather than somewhere really loud. And life is about the quiet and the loud. But I'm kind of glad that I don't go from one loud life to another loud life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I bet.
So, yeah.
And you come from a not a musical in the sense of playing household, right? But your parents are music fans. Didn't they go to like the Leeds concert, or that Nirvana
Red in
did, like
'92.
Red in '92, with
yeah,
their Nirvana album, right?
Yeah, man. So yeah, that once again, that's always been a very important part of my life, side of music and inside of music. Is I'm very fortunate. Whenever I come home from a tour, my parents talk to me. My parents will talk to me about other bands in the scene now, because like we'll be playing and they'll be like, "Oh, that new Boston Manor song is good," or whatever.
Oh
And it's funny
wow,
because it's
they
almost
know
like
all these hipper bands.
through, yeah, and it's cool, because I think there's this, like, there's always, I think music is one of the few passions in life you can't stop having.
Mhm.
It's you live, or you live by music, or you don't. So yeah, so it's been really fortunate growing up. It was always really good to have music in the house and to have parents who would always encourage that. But also now it's, you know we're on the other side of things, and I'm the one in the music scene. Like they were back in the day, they would have listened to Fugazi or stuff like that when it first came out, and now all these years later, it's nice that I can almost show them what the music scene is like now, all these years later, which is really, really cool. So
Wow, that's awesome that your parents were that cool, though. I mean, to like go to
I
see
know.
Nirvana play, and then like
Yeah,
get
dude.
into Fugazi. Like a lot of it wasn't just the pop radio or whatever was happening at the time. It's like they were in
Yeah, for
it,
sure. They
right?
were
I
in the
mean,
cool bits. Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
were. I mean,
Yeah.
seeing Nirvana in '92, that's
Well,
huge. I mean,
I think the coolest thing is, I found out years ago. My mum went to see, I think it was the Pixies playing in London, and I think it was their first ever London show. And I read an interview with Tom York from Radiohead, and he was like, "I remember seeing the Pixies play their first ever London show, and it was brilliant." And I was like, "My mum and Tom York were in the same room at one point." You know what I mean? Like, so it is really cool. Yeah. So
that's
yeah.
crazy. Is there anyone that's like, aside from that one, maybe, or now, like you come home from tour? Has there ever been like a band like that your parents have turned you on to now that maybe you hadn't heard, that was new? You know what I mean? Like you're like come home
Yeah,
and
I know
your
what you
mom's
mean.
like, "Oh, have you checked out this blah blah blah? They just got signed to
No, no,
whatever."
no. Luckily, no, I'd actually be a bit ashamed if they were that far ahead of the curve. But I think actually, just to kind of conclude this kind of little mini point is like, we played a festival literally 2 days ago, and we went on after Electric Six, and they're the guys who wrote Danger High Voltage
Uh-huh.
and Gay Bar. And it was really funny because when I was a kid, that was like one of the CDs my dad had in his car, you know, and like, you know, the whole album was quite goofy. But you know, that was kind of fun. When you're a kid, it's you know, if you played me Radiohead when I was a kid, I wouldn't have thought it was cool. If you played me Electric Six, it's a bit funny and it's a bit cool. So it's a bit more
Right.
relatable as a kid, you know. So I'll never forget listening to Dance Commander in the car, and then I'm about to play, and I can hear them playing Dance Commander, and it's like I met the singer afterwards and told him, you know, I love that album growing up, and it's funny. I think that's the coolest thing about actually loving and living this world that I'm in is like I keep getting constant like true north moments that remind me of it. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not an alien in this world. This is home for me. So every once a week something will happen, and contextually it'll remind me how cool my life is, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, wow, what a special moment to hear that and then be like, what, you know, come up to the singer after and say, "Hey, I would
Yeah,
listen to your record in my dad's
don't get me
car." Like,
wrong, you know, it is Electric Six, you know what I mean? So, you
but
know,
still, I mean,
they're
that's
not the
still
coolest band
cool.
on earth, but it's still cool as hell. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a
But
cool
yeah.
conversation for sure. That's amazing. Wow. Okay. So yeah, and you obviously we talked about last time the band that you're in prior, and a lot of those guys are now in holding the absence. And well, so I guess let's just pick up kind of where we left off before. You had the split coming out, and we kind of like so if we picked it up at that moment, like what, like tell me what kind of went on there on out, like forward, I guess.
Do you know it's crazy because I can't even remember. It's been such a whirl. It's truly been such a whirlwind. I can't even remember when the split came out. I think actually, no. I do remember. The split came out when we had just. I'm right in thinking we just toured America when I was speaking to you. I think.
Yeah, you did. You had just
Yeah,
finished. You
and
got back,
yeah,
and then you talked about meeting Alpha Wolf, and then I think you guys met on tour, right? Or you played some
yes.
shows
Or
with them.
we did the music video for 60 centimeters of steel in Australia as well. So actually, yeah. By this point, we toured America for the first time, and we toured Australia for the first time as well. You know, and
Mhm.
basically we came home and played Aching Longing, which was like the first song off that split. The first time we ever played that was at Download Festival, and like that was one of the biggest sets we'd ever played. So yeah, that was really huge. And then I guess
Was
after that,
that's real quick to touch on that? Was that the first? Like, how many times have you played Download? Because I know you played it with your other band before.
Yeah. So that's what's funny. I think is like we played Download like a few times now, and
Okay.
including I think that's kind of why I'm so proud of it. Really, is because when we played it, as we like, you know, to recap on uh, when I was 18 years of age, my original band won a competition to play Download, and it was proper like
Yeah.
fairy tale, you know, moment. But yeah, I always said to myself, the coolest thing isn't the first time you it'll be the second time you play Download, you know, because
Uh-huh.
you can do things in life, you know, and that's cool. But like having the consistency of doing those kind of things more than once, that's the coolest thing, right? You know, so yeah, with Holden Absence, I think we played Download 2017, and I think we played 2019, and I think
Mhm.
we played 2022, and
Yeah.
because obviously COVID, so I'm pretty sure we're on an on off
On
kind of
off with
bounce
them.
scale at
Yeah.
Download now, which is the coolest flex to have, because it's the kind of festival that, you know, any band would love to play, and I'm so honored that we get the opportunity to play it so often, you know, especially being
Yeah.
British as well. It's like
Oh
our
yeah.
rock festival, you know. So
Sure,
yeah,
exactly. And it's funny that you're not funny, but it's so true that you say the second time. It's going to be the second time that's going to be the big moment at Download, because I would imagine you guys won a contest, and then which is cool, but to be a
who
band
knows? But
just
yeah,
selected, right? Instead of like,
yeah,
okay, there's this, like, you kind of had an angle in, right? It was like, okay, here's a
yes,
contest. I mean, it's huge that you won it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that just shows how great of a songwriter and a band you guys were and are now. But like, to be, you kind of had the goal. It's like, okay, we're going in to win this thing, and then you're just we're a band, and
mm,
we're being invited to kind of come
for
to
sure,
this
for
thing that
sure.
we're always, we got the chance to play. But it was like, I feel like it's just kind of a different perspective, and it's them coming to you
Yeah, for
versus
sure,
you
for sure.
saying, hey, I want to do this, and they're like, okay, you got
And
to win this thing.
And I think the coolest thing about that as well is like having something that felt like the most important thing in the world becoming almost a part of your life,
Right.
so yeah. So, but it is very cool, and we love Download, and I can't wait to play whenever they next invite us again. So, but yeah. So after that Download, then I think the next thing we did really was this. I think it was the Silverstein Amity Affliction tour. Um,
Okay.
so that was really cool, and then we came back again in, what would it have been, April this year with The Plot in You. We're coming back again in September with Census Fail. So that's kind of like a big part of our band now. Is we're very fortunate enough to be one of the British bands that gets invited to America more often than others, or and yeah, and it's really cool. It feels like a brand new lease of life for our band, for sure.
Yeah, because but prior to that, you the first US tour you had done, you had just got back from, right? I mean,
Yeah, Dayseeker. Yeah.
yeah, and then you've done so much since, and it's only been a year.
And I guess it's back to the Download point. You know what I mean? It's like when we went out there and did that Dayseeker tour, it was like, we finally toured America, and now we're about to go out for the fourth time, and once again, kind of make that a part of our lives, So yeah, it's crazy. It's a very big compliment to think that our dreams are coming true often, So
Right.
yeah.
When it comes to that split that you released, The Lost and the Longing, with those, the songs that are on that, were though, like, how did, I don't know if we really got into that. We kind of talked about how you met as a band, and then you did the song together, but like forming, like creating the split. How did you guys decide, like, okay, we're gonna put these songs on it, or this, we're gonna add Coffin to this, and we're gonna make it a split? And then moving forward, you have an album coming out. Like, was that a song that you just had because you had just finished the record prior? Because you had put out a full length not very long prior to that, correct?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think especially with the internet just being such a ravenous beast, I think you've always got to be creating things, and unfortunately for us, we love creating things, like it's I think that's the best thing about being a musician is you're 50% an artist and 50% an athlete. You know what I mean? Like going on stage is great and performing, but then going home and being introspective and creating is a completely different skill set and just as fulfilling, But yeah, so Coffin and Aching Longing, those two songs, I think basically we just kind of started writing again and just started kind of getting back into the groove of it. And you know how it is. I guess it's like pancakes, right? It's like the more you flip, the better you get, And I think with this album, it was a case of like, Coffin and Aching Longing. We were so early at the foot of this album process. We weren't really sure what the bigger picture was going to become, but we knew we loved these songs individually. And, an important part of that split EP as well was making sure that there was a duality to the sound from us, So Coffin is like a piano rock song, I guess. And then Aching Longing is kind of like an archetypal like 2000s post-hardcore song, but yeah, so but I think that was a brilliant experience, like Alpha Wolf of Legends, and everybody won in that regard with that split EP, because I think both of our bands got to do something cool. SharpTone got to do something cool as well, and our fans got to experience something cool as well, so
Yeah. And then, so how, I mean, you guys have been on the road so often and doing so many shows and playing so often. When do you start putting together this new album, The Noble Art of Self-Destruction? Like, when this is coming out, the album's coming out next month, right? The end of next month.
yeah, it is. Yeah.
I
So
mean, that's
yeah, I
quick,
mean,
right? I mean, for a
yes,
year
it
to
is
go
for sure.
by, and kind of just having that other album out and doing the split, and now you guys have been gone for so long. Like, when do you start working on this new album?
Yeah, that was the hardest thing for us, was like this is the first time we've done an album as like a full-time band, so it's like normal, with the last two records we would kind of meet up and write, and and see how each other's weeks had been and how his work and blah
Oh,
blah blah.
interesting.
And now it's like we've just finished truth be told, I think what happened, how did we do it? We did the Dayseeker tour, and we did the Europe tour, and everything was great. And then basically we came home and we said, look, this album, I think the thing people forget with albums is like, if you take a while, there's still a whole lot of time at the end of it that you are not in control of. So if you're not
Yeah.
kind of being proactive, you're going to be frustrated. I mean, we recorded this album in last year, and it's coming out August. So by that metric, that's like 9 months of it just slowly making its way to release, even though it was recorded, right? Do you get what I mean? So yeah, basically
it was
the
finished, but now it's like, you're almost a year later, right, when it comes out.
Yeah. So you've almost got to be doubly proactive, because
you have to be like an album ahead of an album.
Yeah. And I think we knew that, so we were just like, look, like, once we get home, we've got the summer to ourselves, but I think we've got to make a start with this album, basically. And that was kind of what we did. We did 5-day writing weeks, and we really tried to just make a go of it as professionally and as maturely as possible, I guess. Well, but the other thing I'd say, which was really cool, was like, you'd come up with these ideas, and then you go on tour for months, and then you come back to these ideas, and I think as a very conceptually driven songwriter and storyteller, lyricist, a lot of my work is done away from the computer and away from the canvas. Almost, it's like letting these ideas sit with me, manifest inside my head, and become, like almost like slow cooking, I guess. Like an idea, it's cool to flash fry something, sorry, but like slow cooking something is a whole nother kind of product, I guess. And I think the point I'm getting at here is to do 3 months of 5-day week songwriting sessions, like very meticulously, almost as if it was an office job, and then to go on tour for 3 months, look at the lyrics, try and piece together the concept, try and understand the best structure for those songs in terms of an album's flow and stuff like that. I think we were fortunate enough to have both sides of the hard parts of writing an album done, if that makes sense, but in two very different ways.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, because you were having time to spend on the album, but then you would leave, right, for months on end, and then you could come back and and just kind of maybe an experience happens, or if something comes up and you're like, oh, this would be cool if we added that to this song that we already have been working on, or whatnot.
Or even the fact that music and all art ages differently. Some songs age better than others, and don't get me wrong, like 3 months isn't very long to know if a song is going to age well or not. But if you write a song and you think it's the best thing on earth, and then 2 months later you come back and you think it sucks, thank God you waited 2 months rather than just recording it straight away.
Yeah, that is a great point, because there'll be songs that I'll hear and I'm like, and then I'll hear it a few more times, and then like it'll keep coming up, and I'm like, actually, this song is really good. Like the initial, reaction I had was not the right one. You know what I mean? It was almost like it was like a slow burn, or vice versa. Like, oh, this is the greatest song ever. And then 7 times later, I'm like, like
this song sucks.
And it
was fun. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a really important part about writing music, is almost respecting that you are just a person as well. You're writing music for people. What is your initial response? If this song grows on you, then chances are it's going to grow on everybody else.
Right. And it was interesting, you said that this was kind of the first album that you were able to write together as a band, as like, this is your full-time gig. I think last time we talked, you said that you were still kind of bartending every once in a while, like somewhere, right? And like somebody would come in, you'd be like, they'd have like your band's shirt on. Like, oh.
And I'd have to stop pouring pints to take a photo with a fan, and like it was awesome.
That's so rad.
It was really cool, but yeah.
But now, I mean, not having that kind of other thing to kind of think about. I mean, I don't know what it was like for your other band members, if they were like 9-to-5 jobs, or having now more of the freedom to just do music or just write full time and do this as a full-time career. Like how has that changed as far as like when it came to the album, or even just being a band together?
Yeah, it's cool. It's I will say it's funny, because I don't think we're not that we're an immature group of people in any way, but it's like, I think sometimes I forget that we're adults, if that makes sense. Because I just feel like because we grew up together, right? So it's like we're still the same kids that we kind of were when we met, almost. But it's like Yeah, so that I will say that that naturally makes you feel more adult, if that makes sense. Like I'm doing a full-time job now, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Like
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
than this is my hobby and I'm just a
Right.
kid. Like if so now there's definitely a different energy in the camp and a far more serious and respectful kind of one, you know, when we finish a tour and everybody goes off into their own lives, you know. It's lovely because like I know my best friends are resting and spending time with their loved ones, you know, rather than worrying if, you know, Scott's got to work at his coffee shop or if, you
Right.
know, Ash has got to do another job or whatever, you know, it's like, it's nice because it feels like for the first time in a long time, there is like an underlying stability to our band, which is really nice. Um, and I think as well, it makes touring as hard as and as often as we do. I think it makes us better at that as well because we know it's like crunch time. You know what I mean? Like we've had 3 months off now to spend with our family, and it's great. But we've got 4 months on the road now, and we're gonna smash this. You know, and I think that it's a really interesting thing because I'd never really thought too much about how the mentality of a group of people can change depending on the circumstances of the job. I guess you know what I mean. So,
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, especially in a creative space, right? It's like, I mean, I did radio for a long time, almost 2 decades. So it was
mm,
like I remember being on the radio and didn't make any money, and I'd have to work another job, and I would just do any shift I could that they would give me. If it was, you know, midnight
mm,
to 5 in the morning, you would do that and then go work the other job just to stay, yeah, afloat, so to speak, and be able to do what you love. But then you kind of land in this moment, if you're lucky, to be like, okay, now all I have to do is focus on this one thing. Like I'm able to like just do this. And then you can
mm.
almost it, it's like you said, you get 3 months off and you can like kind of decompress instead of like you have 3 months off, but now you're worrying about like, okay, I'm not really resting because I'm going to this job every day, and then I got to come back, and then I have to ask for the time off and be like, okay, I'm gonna be gone for 3 months again. It's like it's just one less piece of the puzzle probably that you have to
Yeah,
juggle,
for sure. And
you
I think it's
know?
healthier as well because it's just like, you know, yeah, I think you're aware of your life for a change, you know. Like
Right.
I've been watching The Bear recently. I don't know if you've seen it.
Huh.
It's a brilliant show about kind of about a kitchen, I guess, like a Chicago kind of greasy spoon or whatever. But
The
I
Bear?
worked in The Bear. Yeah, I think you'd really enjoy it, man. It's really good. But
I'll have to
I worked
search.
at a restaurant as kind of like my first job, you know, and then I went straight into bar work, like we said last time, and I think there's just like a same with the, you know, you work in radio and kind of accepting any old gig and taking whatever shift and just like there's almost a disregard for your actual life because you
Right.
know you're just yeah, and I think you know the same can definitely be said with being in a band where you don't really care what happens at home because it's a bit of a kamikaze dive and just like I'll do anything I can to reach this dream, you know. And I think yeah, it's nice because now we're afforded the time to like I've kind of recently been realizing that like I'm always living in a state of bittersweetness because I miss my family or touring at any given moment, you know.
Right.
And I think that's great because it means that I love my life and I love my job, you know.
Mhm.
And I think that's not even a job; it's just the dream that I'm fortunate enough to do so often. But I think you know, trying to have that balance, I think that has been not the hardest lesson I've learned throughout all this, but definitely the most important lesson.
Yeah, no, 100% because you're yeah, like you said, you're finally you get to, you know, miss your family and loved ones, but and miss touring. But when you're home with your family and loved ones, it's not now I also have to worry about doing this
For
or
sure. If you
yeah.
hated your home life or you hated your touring life or whatever, you know, like
Yeah.
you're always jumping from one state of positive emotion into a negative one. Whereas
Right.
I'm just trying to make sure that everything's a little bit positive and a little bit
Sure.
negative, you know? Yeah.
Okay, so with this album then, you guys got to kinda get up or meet up, and you said you were doing, like, 5 days in a row writing and everything. Was that how do you feel like that affected this album versus your other ones where it was more of a, "Okay, we have these days together or this weekend together?"
Yeah, I think there's definitely like I'll say we are like an old school. I mean, it's funny because it's not really old school, but you know, we are. the kind of band that records like okay demos, and then we'll go to the studio and capture the magic in a period of time. But there's definitely a new wave of musician that is writing and recording an album as it happens, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for us, that wasn't, we're not like that. And I think there is almost like an extra, like a very unique sort of pressure that can sometimes produce very unique kind of moments in music as well, where we've only got a week, we need to get the last song, or we've only got a day, we need to get the last vocal take or whatever. There's working to a time limit is in a good way like a positive type of limit, I'd say. So that kind of shapes our every experience as we songwrite, because we know that there's always a clock ticking, and we need to try and tap into more extreme kind of answers, I guess, rather than just being like, we'll record this song next week instead. It's like, no, there is no next week. Let's get the best thing we can right now. But yeah, so that was definitely like, that is always just a big part of what we do, I guess. But yeah, more than anything, I think this album's, it's very cliche to say this album feels more mature or whatever, but I think having toured, like we played roughly like 250 shows since the pandemic, and like that is like, is a lot, man. And like, it's like the type of band we've become beneath the music is different now. So it's about trying to essentially like make people feel that, like almost like this album feels more comfortable, I think, which is a good thing, I think. So
yeah, I saw that you said that I love the songs I've heard off the album thus far, and you said Honeymoon is I think you said it was the most beautiful song you've ever written.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I can. Yeah,
I'm just curious.
Like, a good judge, I guess. Yeah.
No, it is a great song, and I love what you guys do, the acoustics versions of your songs too. Like, I always think that's so rad when a band that is like a heavier rock band can do that. Like, it just shows how versatile you are, and how great musicians you all are, that to be able to do that, to strip a song back acoustic and have it still sound so good.
Yeah, that is always quite an important rule for us as well. It's like, if a song can't be good stripped of all of the tricks and all of the studio kind of wizardry, then it's not really a good song. It's just a good collection of sounds, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, and like the best songs for me are the ones that you can play on an acoustic guitar, or you can jam out to and have just as much fun, I think. So yeah, so we're always trying to capture that kind of, bones need to be good, if like, and then as long as the bones are good, then everything on top can you will eventually find. But if a song is rotten at its core and isn't actually good, but you're trying desperately to put breakdowns and like weird guitar tones and stuff over the top of it, I think that's like a bit of a losing game. You know what I mean? So yeah, so for us, that's always an important thing. But with Honeymoon, yeah, I think first and foremost, I always get messaged. I'm always like, what's the could you do like a press, like whatever, like a statement for this new song or whatever? And like sometimes it's just like, they're like, Jesus Christ, what do I say this time?
Sorry, as I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah,
you're like, this fucking guy.
This song is also good. Yeah, but no,
this song is also good.
but with Honeymoon, yeah, I think it's definitely a very like sensitive, tender kind of moment in our band's discography, and I think that's what we're always aiming to achieve, is just trying to, I really just think we're always just trying to stretch this band out as much as we can, and as healthily as we can as well, and I think we've always had it in us to do a beautiful song that is essentially a love song. But for this album, I think it was, if we're going to go all this way and have all these epic kind of heavier tracks, like how beautiful can we go? And we've had a piano song before, but I think this is far more like nuanced, and like almost like the band is being beautiful rather than just a little piano and a vocal, I guess,
And did you had Dan Weller produce this album? Is that the first time you worked with him?
No. So Dan, we've been really fortunate enough to work with Dan for a lot of years, but most importantly, he did our last album as well. So
Okay,
so
that's
this
what it was. I
album
remember.
is,
I just
yeah.
interviewed another band that worked with him the other day. I can't remember. Yes, Caskets. I just I
Yeah,
just had them on. Okay.
yeah.
I was
So
gonna
they're
say
legends, but
yeah, they had him for the other album record too that they did. Okay,
we
that's
both
exactly
did
who it
our
was.
last two
You nailed
albums.
it.
Yeah, there we go.
So obviously, yeah, he's the go-to guy for you as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's I don't know, back to feeling almost like kids sometimes, you know. It's always good to have somebody you trust that is kind of cut from a different cloth almost, you know. And I think, you know, Dan is perfect for us because he's a brilliant he's a brilliant songwriter, but he's also a very sound maker as well, you know. And I know that sounds like gibberish, but it's like, you know, he'll spend hours trying to get the ambient epic swells with us the same way that he'll sit down with an acoustic guitar with us and write the songs with us as well, you know. So
Mhm.
we've got a very like symbiotic kind of interwoven relationship. But yeah, so yeah, we had a blast with him this time.
That's amazing. And you're doing the Census Fails tour, and they're doing that album in its entirety too, right?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's got to be. Were you guys? I mean, was that record meaningful to you guys growing up?
Honestly, not so much. I actually think it was
Okay.
kind of that album came out when I was 8, so it's like, you know, it's
Oh yeah, I didn't think about
yeah,
your
no,
age
no,
to
no, it's
there.
still, you know, no,
I
yeah,
forgot you.
but
I'm old, so it's like for me.
no, well, compared to a lot of musicians, we're old now as well. You know what I mean? So it is a funny one, but yeah, I think it's been really cool our American kind of conquest because, you know, come September we'll have done a tour with Dayseeker and a tour with The Plot in You, who I perceive to kind of be the future of heavy melodic music, and then Silverstein, Amity Affliction, and Senses Fail, who are three bands that almost paved the way. You know, so it's
Uh-huh.
it's it's a real honor to be put amongst, you know, these brilliant bands in this space. You know, it's really cool.
That's so awesome. That's funny that you're like, I was 8. Now I'm like, God, I'm old. I was like
Yeah.
already like 5 years out of high school and that album came out.
Oh.
Shit. But that's awesome, dude. So yeah, you're coming back to the States in September, I think is what I
Yeah,
remember. That's awesome.
yeah.
And it's gonna be probably your 5th time back now. What, 4th or 5th?
Fourth, yeah,
Yeah.
fourth, man.
Wow.
So, but we're working on a headline tour as well because I feel like we've done so much. You can almost lose yourself to being a support band a little bit.
Mhm.
And I think in the UK we're a very established headline band, really. So
Yeah.
we kind of want to bring that performance over, and you know, and make sure that our American fans aren't just hearing the same support slot music over and over again. You know. So,
Yeah, because when you headline, I'm sure it's got to be it's your show. Not only that, you get longer time. I mean, you can probably
yeah.
bring a lot more when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I think the main thing is when you support a band, especially when you put as much on the line as we do when we fly over and spend thousands. You know, it's like you're almost like fighting for your life, trying to make sure that everyone loves you quickly. You know,
Yeah.
so like, you know, so you don't really have those moments of like tender kind of music because, you know, you assume someone will go and get a beer at that point and you've lost them.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a different skill to both of them, but you know,
Yeah, you
by
got
the
to
time we come
capture
out
them
for
right
that,
away. It's like you got to get them in the first when they're walking in the door, so to speak,
yeah, for
right?
sure. And I always think I'm very paranoid about it, but it's almost like every second you perform is another second you could lose them. So every
Oh.
second that isn't great is
Yeah.
like, you know, oh my god, we're losing them. We need to kick it. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, as you can tell, I'm a very anxious person on stage. So
Well,
yeah.
you guys are awesome. You're killing it, and what a great tour to be on. And when you come through the States as a headliner, I want to see you in Nashville.
Yeah, dude. I mean, we love Nashville. The two, I think we played there twice now. But
Yeah.
I've got a really really vivid memory of Nashville. And this might just be whatever to you, but we played a show the first time we played Nashville, and two or three of our friends are from Nashville, and we went for a couple of drinks in like a jazz bar, which was like they had like it was like a kind of weird like secret jazz bar, and then we went for like vegan kind of like burgers at like 3 o'clock in the morning in some like greasy kind of like weird shack, you know, and like it's really funny because like America's so big, but like
Uh-huh.
there are a few moments that I'll never forget, and like Nashville is fortunately connected to one of those, which is really cool. So
That's awesome. That's so awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lucas, for doing this again. I appreciate your time. I have one more question. I asked you this last time, but I'm going to ask again. If you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Oof. I mean, I always, oh God, you could probably listen back to this last interview and I would have said the same thing. I always say, you know, it's about luck and hard work, you know what I mean? So just keep buying the scratch cards, keep hoping that someday a miracle will happen. And in the meantime, keep working hard as hell. But I'd say, you know, maybe the other advice I'd say is just be nice. You know what I mean? Like, I think this industry is full of pretentious douchebags, and I think it's very easy to sniff that out. And whenever I meet someone whose intentions are pure and is just there to have fun and be nice, they go so much further up in my estimations than even good musicians. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's all I gotta say, I guess.